All right. Hello, everybody. We have some more kind of juicy drama coming out of OpenAI. They've kind of been a little bit of a dumpster fire this year. Now, rather than kind of waxing hyperbolic on it, let's just talk facts. So, right up front, what happened is that Mira Murati, their CTO, announced her resignation, her decision to depart. Apparently, based on the reports and kind of the consistent messaging, she dropped this bombshell on Sam Altman. What was it, yesterday morning? At least as of the time of recording. So she told Sam Altman in the morning, but then two other people followed suit, and it sounds like they knew that these other two people were leaving. At least that's kind of the implication here. So this is Bob McGrew, which is the chief research officer, and Barrett Zoff, the VP of research. So they just lost a huge amount of leadership. A lot of fanboys, OpenAI fanboys out there are saying, well, Mira Murati wasn't that good anyways, which that's kind of a sour grapes mentality. What I will remind people is that Mira was one of the people holding the ship together during the debacle that was Sam's ouster and return. So whether or not you agree with her performance on the various interviews and podcasts that she's been on, kind of my take is that she was kind of backed into a corner, right? What I'm particularly thinking about is when she was asked about, oh, did you use stolen, IP to train Sora? And she's like, we used, I don't even remember what she said, but she kind of just had to dodge that. Other people suspect that maybe she was asked to leave, but there's no real evidence of that. Now, what I will point out, though, is that this is three other high-level departures following Jan Laika, who was the head of Superalignment, and Ilya Sutskever, who was their chief science officer and co-founder. On top of all that, Greg Brockman is currently on leave. John Schulman, Diane Yoon, and Chris Clark, amongst a few others, have also all departed and or been fired. Now, Sam wrote on Twitter trying to get a hold of the narrative because Mira posted on Twitter directly, not under any other banner, but she posted directly on Twitter announcing her departure, and Sam replied to it and retweeted it with his note, and then he added more notes later, so he reacted directly to Mira's announcement, but then he added a longer note talking about like, oh, we're going to ensure a smooth transition. Here's who's taking over. The reason that I say that that's damage control mode is because the audience of Sam Altman's tweets were investors. It wasn't us. It was very, very well written. One hilarious comment said, clearly this was written by AI because it's not all lowercase, because Sam Altman is famous for his all lowercase tweets. So that's what happened. Now, having interacted with OpenAI employees over the last few years, again, I started working with OpenAI, and I don't mean like in any kind of partnership. I'm not trying to mislead you, but just I was on their forums and I communicated with OpenAI directly back in the days of GPT-3. And on top of that, and all the other conversations I've had, I've got a little bit of insight as to kind of how OpenAI thinks, or at least how they used to think. So one of the things, and I'll caution you by saying it's entirely possible that this is not their thinking today, particularly as they've tried to become more of a product company. And the fact that their safety team has completely been trashed, the fact that their research team has now completely been trashed, it seems like they're pivoting to just be 100% product. So it's not entirely surprising that people are leaving. But at the same time, if you want to achieve AGI or ASI, you need a good research team. So it seems like Sam Altman is doubling down on just scale, basically assuming that what they're doing is going to keep working, and that, kind of in his starry-eyed era of intelligence post, deep learning worked, and so scale works. Even Mark Zuckerberg on, with the launch of his Orion, the AR glasses, even he's saying, will the current paradigm scale? We're hoping so. We're taking a big gamble on it. But even Mark Zuckerberg said, it's entirely possible that that the current paradigm will give out, that will find limitations, and that will need some other kind of algorithmic or architectural change. So with all that being said, the way that OpenAI at least used to think, and very explicitly, like I've had OpenAI insiders tell me this, is the reason that they don't really pay much attention to cognitive architectures or multi-agent frameworks is because they believe the model should do everything. That anything that the model can't do, the model should be able to do. And so this includes, it's like, well, you could just offload math to a math solver, and then you'll have something else that can do math. We already have things that can do math better than language models. So that is kind of one example of kind of that mentality. I suspect that mentality was coming from Ilya. I seem to remember, although I can't remember if it was something that was specifically told to me or if it was kind of an implication or an inference. But basically, it's Ilya's belief, Ilya Sutskever, that the model should be able to do everything. The model should be able to do planning. It should be able to do math. It should be able to do metacognition. And that is a very clear belief. And that the reason that is such a kind of an astounding belief, or the reason that is kind of a transformational kind of MTP, massive transformative purpose, is because the idea that models can do everything is still, you look at Gary Marcus and Jan LeCun and other naysayers, they're all saying, oh, well, we're so far from AGI and ASI might never happen, blah blah blah. I don't believe those guys. I don't agree with Gary Marcus there. I don't agree with Jan LeCun. But at the same time, it is a little bit, I don't want to use the word pretentious, but my slightly sleep deprived brain is not giving me a better word. But it's a very, let's say, ballsy move to say the model will do everything, up to and including replacing other software, other systems architectures and those sorts of things. Now, that's one way to think about it, but another way to think about it is that regardless of how smart the model is, it needs to connect to the rest of systems. It needs to exist in an ecosystem, which is why my last episode was talking about the importance of marketplaces, which includes DAOs, blockchain, cryptocurrency, multi-agent frameworks, and those sorts of things. So the model, the AI model, if you have a genius in a jar, it doesn't really matter. You got to put it into something, and you got to connect it to stuff. So you got to put it in a robot. You got to put it in an API, or give it access to APIs. And so the kind of the model that I use, the mental metaphor, is that a language model or a transformer is just like the V12 in a Ferrari, right? But you need the rest of the Ferrari. Or it's like the jet engine in an F-22. You certainly need the jet engine to power the F-22, but you also need the rest of the F-22. And so this leads to kind of one of my key points, is that OpenAI is a one-trick pony. And by one-trick pony, I mean, you look at the portfolio of software that Microsoft and Google and Meta offers. They offer this huge portfolio of business software, of consumer software, of other products and services. Google likewise has their constellation of services and products. Apple, ditto, they have a constellation of products and services. Each of these companies has built their own ecosystem. But when you look at OpenAI, objectively speaking, on their business, they have a single product, which is ChatGPT. Now, granted, there is an API, and they're one of the business leaders there in terms of consumer usage. But other companies like Google still sell more tokens. Meta is not far behind. Microsoft, building Azure, Azure AI and all of their pipelines. Again, OpenAI is a one-trick pony, so betting on OpenAI is just assuming that their research is going to be better. But they've lost all their researchers, right? They lost Ilya, they lost Jan, they lost Mira, and now they also lost Bob and Barrett. Now, of course, you might say, okay, well, the leadership is not necessarily the most important thing. You need the genius on the street, but they don't have that many geniuses left. I think like Noam Brown is one of their last remaining kind of in-house geniuses. And management is one thing, but you need good management because man, you might poo-poo on the necessity of management, but if you have bad management, you're not getting anything done. So you need good management, and you need the geniuses, and you need them at all levels of the organization. But OpenAI keeps hemorrhaging talent. So another thing that happens, and this is not unique to OpenAI, but looking at the tweets that OpenAI employees give, um, there's this phenomenon that happens in tech where any person that you ask in technology, their domain is the most important domain. You ask the data people, they say that data is the most important thing because the business doesn't exist without data. You ask the developers say that software, the code that they write is the most important thing because without them, the applications don't exist. You ask an infrastructure guy like me, what the most important thing is, and we'll say that infrastructure is most important because if you don't have a data center, you can't run anything. And so every department and subcategory of technology all believes that they're the most important. And this diva mentality is encouraged by the Silicon Valley kind of culture and ethos. And so this inflated sense of individual importance leading every team or even every member of teams to believe that they are the most crucial component. This is probably leading to that belief, the fact that they're a one-trick pony, and all they've got is a model. When you look at what is the beating heart of OpenAI's business, it is right now GPT-4 and the promise of GPT-5. That is it. And so in terms of price offerings or product offerings rather, that's why they have to defend it tooth and nail and claw. That's why they have threatened to ban people who probe their chain of thought reasoning, because if they give up the secret sauce, if you compromise it and you lose that moat, well, guess what? Everyone else is just going to pick it up and duplicate it. And this is why I've kind of mentioned Meta in the past, where Mark Zuckerberg realized, like, he just looked at the facts, right? All the data comes from public sources. We've consumed all the data. And plus, Meta's got their own data, right? You look at Reddit and Twitter and Microsoft and Google, they have their own data. Mark Zuckerberg has plenty of data through Facebook as well. Plus, they've also got Instagram and a few other, like WhatsApp and stuff. So they got plenty of data. They got data coming out of the nose. So they don't need anything else. And then all the research is open source. So Mark Zuckerberg said, you know what, we're not going to try and compete on foundation models. It's just going to become commoditized. And by the way, NVIDIA and Microsoft, as far as I can tell, they both believe the same thing. Foundation models, whether it's language models or multimodal models, they're all going to be commoditized before too long. And so OpenAI, they've really lost their luster. So what does this mean from a business perspective? What does this mean from a product perspective or a research perspective? Well, some people, and by some people I mean the one specific name that comes to mind is Samo Burya. So Samo is he's a consultant on like geopolitics and a bunch of other stuff. Super smart guy. On a recent podcast, he said that ChatGPT was a net negative for AI research because people were focusing on the basic science before ChatGPT came out, and now it's a gold rush. I actually categorically disagree with Samo on this point. I think that, yes, it became a gold rush, but now there's even more money being poured into AI research, and that includes fundamental science, and it also includes safety. Because of ChatGPT's breakout moment, it has the attention that it needs. Yes, it is moving faster, but at the same point, that is, I think it's a net positive for not just safety, but productivity. So I believe that it's a net positive for humanity. Now, another thing that happened. So not just did ChatGPT create that kind of blow the lid off the whole thing movement, but it also kind of, and I'm not saying that this was any grand plan or any grand scheme. I'm just saying post facto justification or just kind of observation of the downstream impacts is that Sam Altman became, or he already was power seeking, but now his power seeking behavior has alienated everyone from the company. And, a lot of OpenAI's biggest competitors were founded by former OpenAI employees, namely Anthropic. And now Ilya Sutskever's Safe Superintelligence, SSI Inc. So that behavior is actually going to be an even bigger net positive for humanity. So whatever, Mira and Bob and Barrett go and do, and whatever Jan and Ilya go and do, we're exploring in all directions in terms of how to do this research, how to do it safely, and we're getting a cross section of ideas, getting many different models and potential avenues of research. So, net effect, I think that the Chat GPT moment, yes, it's been messy, but I mean, it's gotten the attention, it's gotten the eyeballs on it, and it's gotten the investment dollars going, and that I think is a net positive because guess what? A lot of people, myself included, as well as some of the more diehard safety people, we were all just kind of, researching AI and researching AI safety and avoid, and now we've got attention. Now we've got platforms, and now we've got eyeballs on us, and that is a net positive because we're able to now engage in messaging. Okay, I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, so I don't have that much else to say. But people did ask me for my take on Mira leaving. And by the way, again, it's not just Mira. It's, we've lost a lot of the key players, including some of the top researchers and top leadership. And where I'll end is if you are at a company that is on the verge of building AGI or has the path to ASI, you don't leave. You don't leave if that's the case. You either get fired or they're not anywhere close. Some people say, oh, they're just riding the wave. They're just relaxing because they've solved it. As far as I'm concerned, that is probably pure cope. Particularly when you look at the fact that O1 preview, yes, it has slammed some benchmarks and it's very useful. It's a slight UX improvement, but you could still get better results from a multi-agent framework. And by the way, you could get it cheaper and faster from a multi-agent framework. So anyways, yeah, that's where we're at with OpenAI. I think that I kind of stand by what I predicted, which is as more and more top people are leaving, it's a sinking ship. And that's kind of what I observed in my career is when the star players start heading for the door, the company has taken a turn for the worst. And when you see this many top players heading for the door, the company is going down in flames. So that is where I will agree with Gary Marcus, and that's where I'll hit stop. So thanks for listening. Have a good one.